when there are large multi-billion multinational corporations like Amazon and Walmart that pay their workers such low wages that they're forced to go on welfare, what do we call that? We call that corporate welfare because the taxpayer is forced to subsidize the wages of workers since companies like Amazon are too greedy to pay their workers a living wage. Well, thankfully, Bernie Sanders has concocted a brilliant new plan to stop corporate welfare, or at least incentivize these multi-billion-dollar corporations to pay their workers a living wage once and for all, because if they don't, they will be penalized for it. Now, as Gideon Resnick of the Daily Beast reports, Senator Bernie Sanders is amping up his battle against large corporations like Amazon with a new bill set to be introduced on September 5th. According to the senator's office, the legislation would create a 100% tax on large employers equal to the amount of federal benefits that the employer's low-wage workers receive. For instance, if an Amazon employee gets $300 in food stamps, Amazon would be taxed $300. At a time of massive wealth and income inequality, the gap between the very rich and everyone else continues to grow wider, Sanders said in a statement. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, the wealthiest person on earth, has become a symbol of that inequality and greed. The statement continued, while Mr. Bezos is worth $155 billion, and while his wealth has increased $260 million every single day this year, he continues to pay many Amazon employees wages that are so low that they are forced to depend on taxpayer-funded programs such as food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing just to get by. The proposed legislation, however, does not specifically target Amazon. While Mr. Bezos is the most egregious example, Sanders explained, the Walton family of Walmart and many other billionaire-owned, large and profitable companies also enrich themselves off taxpayer assistance while paying their workers poverty-level wages. That is why I am introducing legislation in September to demand that Mr. Bezos and other billionaires get off welfare and start paying their workers a living wage. So this is forcing these multi-billion-dollar companies like Amazon and Walmart to stop sucking off of the government's teat and to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and actually pay their workers a wage so taxpayers don't have to make up the deficit. I mean, if you have a worker that's working 40 hours per week and they have to go on welfare, that's absurd. You should be able to not just support yourself if you're working a full-time job, but you should be able to have extra money to be able to live at least a somewhat luxurious life. You should be able to buy video games or makeup or whatever the hell makes you happy. But the fact that people are working full-time jobs and they can barely even pay rent, it just speaks to the failure of our capitalistic system. And what Bernie Sanders is trying to do here is even the playing field. And if we're no longer having to subsidize the wages of Walmart workers and Amazon workers, then guess what? That frees up more money. It makes more money available that we can reinvest into social safety net programs. So overall, this is about strengthening our social safety net. And Bernie Sanders, really, in creating this bill, not only is it bold, it's brilliant because it was something I didn't think about. But I feel like if this were to ever pass, it would work. And certainly, if it ever were to pass, we would see the biggest fight ever, because we saw the way that Amazon responded when the Seattle City Council introduced a $500 per person head tax on corporations making, I believe, more than $50 million a year. They protested it, and they put so much pressure on the Seattle City Council that they decided to reverse this tax within, I think 2 weeks. So if we saw how much they put up a fight against a $500 head tax, imagine the fight they'd put up for this. I mean, and the fact that they're fighting anything, if you're as rich as Jeff Bezos, who has more than $150 billion, you should never be concerned about money, ever. You should be making sure that your workers are taken care of, but not only are they forced to work in awful, disgusting conditions, where they're not treated like humans, rather they're treated like robots, but they're not even paid very well. I mean, it's disgusting. It's absolutely repulsive to think about the wealth of the Waltons and Bezos. it's nauseating. It really is nauseating, especially taking into account the way that they treat workers. So what Bernie Sanders is doing here is so brilliant, and it's certainly going to be a bill that I push hard for as soon as it comes out, because if you want to live in a fair and just society, then it's obviously the case that large multinational corporations have got to pay their fair share, and really this is only the start of them paying their fair share. It's not, to ask that they pay their workers enough to survive, it seems like, that's a lot given how far to the right the Overton window is in this country, but really, we're not asking them a lot. If you have workers, it's your responsibility to pay them enough to where they don't have to seek out a second job or a third job. Individuals who are boomers, they could work at Taco Bell full-time and be able to buy a house and put themselves through college. And now, even if you work 2 jobs, there's no way that you're going to be able to get through college without student loans unless your family's rich. There's no way you're going to be able to live, at least not even just a luxurious life, but a comfortable life where you're not worrying about money. It's not even possible anymore. So we've got to make sure that these companies stop getting away with taking advantage of us. And this is just one small step in ending that and curbing their greed. But there's a lot more that needs to be done, and this is a great start. So kudos to Bernie Sanders for introducing this. I hope more lawmakers get on board. Those who do not, like, individuals in what I'd call the corporate Democrat wing of the party, if they don't endorse this legislation and co-sponsor this legislation, we'll know that they're full of shit and they're not actually progressive. So let's see what they do.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.